This is what it's come to. This was $130 at Canadian Tire on sale, 1500 watt. This is what it's come to. It's been 2.5 days since we lost power, and there's no quick end in sight. The power company says before they said that we'd be back online by tonight. Now they say tomorrow night. Some places they say not until the weekend. This is bad. The fridge and freezer had just got too warm for comfort. I tried hooking my jumper pack up to the car battery here, but its little 300 watt inverter didn't have the gumption to start either the fridge or the freezer. This thing does. It will not run both of them simultaneously. I tried. The running power is well below 1500 watts, but the power required to start the compressors is way too high. The engine has to be running for this thing to have enough power to start either the fridge or the freezer, but once it's running I can shut the engine off. And it's actually lasting really good. Has this display here. The battery voltage is currently 11.9 volts. That's really good. I believe this thing will sound an alarm when it gets to 11.5 and it'll shut down at 11. So a lot of nice leeway here. 11 volts is more than enough to restart the engine and charge the battery. But yeah, the fridge has been running for about 10 minutes now. And yeah, it's lasting a good while. 11.9 volt battery voltage, 120 volt output, and that last display there says 0.18. That's the amount of power that the fridge is using divided by 1,000. So the fridge is using 180 watts. Very nice. Got 2 outlets as well as a USB port. This telephone jack here, that's to plug in a remote power switch, which it came with. If we look over here, there's 2 fans. I don't think they're running yet. Maybe you guys can see. No, they're not running. Didn't come with the battery cables, so I'm using the jumper cables here. And this thing is the savior of our food. It's a nice inverter, that's for sure. And I'm surprised that it's lasted this long. I would have thought I had to run the car continuously, or at least start it every few minutes in order to keep the battery up so it could run something big like the fridge. But A, the fridge doesn't use as much power as I thought, and B, the battery is a bit more resilient than I thought. $130, oh my god, my wallet's hurting. I've always wanted an inverter anyway, but I wish I could have bought one under better circumstances, but perhaps there's no better circumstances than an emergency situation, because it's sure good to have one when you're in an emergency, which we are, pretty much. Also bought that at Walmart. That's a propane stove. Bought the container too. Stove was $35, container was 10 bucks. I'm just about to set it up so I can throw something on there to eat. It's currently, I don't know, 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon and I haven't eaten yet today. So I'm going to go do that right now. Alright, Mom made a point to me that the deep freezer contains a lot more stuff than the fridge and is overall more important to run. So I unplugged the fridge and plugged in the freezer. In 15 or 20 minutes of running, the fridge ran the battery down to only 11.8 volts, and I turned it off and the battery voltage went back up to about 12 volts, and of course the engine started right up. And as soon as I started the engine, I plugged in the freezer and then shut the engine down. I made a note of what time it was when I plugged in the freezer, and it's probably about 5 minutes later. Voltage is 11.7 volts, and the freezer is drawing about 185 watts. I'm going to leave the freezer running, and we'll see how long this whole system can keep the freezer running before I have to start the engine to recharge the battery. But this is working excellent, and I'm not talking just about the inverter, I'm talking about the battery too. I did not expect that battery to be able to run a deep freeze of all things for this long. Now mind you, not very long so far. I've only tested about 15-20 minutes total, but it's doing good nonetheless. We'll see. Mom's had to go into town for reasons I won't detail, so this thing's back in here. But yeah, this thing works really well. Oh, what time is it? I plugged the freezer in at 1:50, so it's been 45 minutes. This thing ran the freezer without the car's engine running for 45 minutes. The battery voltage got down to 11.5 volts. The low battery alarm didn't go off. I thought the manual said it goes off at 11.5 volts, but maybe it's 11. But yeah, this thing and the car's battery did a great job. And at 11.5 volts, when Mom had to leave, I turned this thing off. Battery voltage jumped back up to 12 volts. The engine started right up like the battery hadn't been run down at all. And yeah, this is great. This is gonna save our food for the remainder of this power outage. But here's a closer look at it. 2 outlets, got a digital display, remote connector, USB port, and the power switch. And it got pretty hot. It's pretty hot to the touch right now, but the fans never kicked on. A lot of nice good heat sinking. Negative and positive battery terminals. Input 13.2 volts DC, 130 amps maximum. 130 amps. Is that a crap ton of current or what? How many amps was I doing with 200 watts? I was doing 17 or 18 amps out of the battery. So for 45 minutes out of that, 17, 18 amps, and then it jumped back up to 12 volts and the engine starts like nothing ever happened. That's really nice. I completely underestimated how long it could run like that. 1500 watts, 13 amps continuous. So yeah, it doesn't have enough surge power to start the fridge while the deep freeze is running, or the other way around, but it has plenty of power to run either of them individually. And of course, because either of them only use like less than 200 watts, this has plenty of power at hand to run any other stuff we'd want to do too, charge our laptops or anything. While we were in town to get this, I was able to charge my 12 volt Motorola bag phone battery, as well as my laptop and Mom's Android tablet. So we're in okay shape right now. But yeah, even though this thing cost me every last penny I don't have, we definitely needed it. It's gonna save us a lot of money in food, so I'm glad I got it. Alright, it's been 2 days and 8 hours, 9 hours maybe, that we've been without power, and we're doing okay so far. Wish I could have a shower. This is what MB Power's site looks like. mbpower.com, click outages, shows all the different areas of the province. We're in St. Stephen. We're currently, the number of outages, I don't know how that number is determined, but it's 256. And then the number of customers affected is 10,000 and some. That's not much better than when the hurricane first hit. I think the highest we were was 13,000 and some. And actually this morning we were down to 9,000, but now we've gone back up. I have heard, I was listening to CBC News on the radio, and MB Power made a statement saying that they are having a problem with restoring people's power, but then those same people lose it again. So it really is kind of a losing battle right now. This number is lower, which is nice. This is all these added up, 83,000 and some. At its highest it was 130,000. This morning I think it was around 100,000. Let's click St. Stephen. And most places say assessment in progress. They do give the time the outage began. But they all say assessment in progress, and I don't know why, because during the, if I remember right, during the ice storm, most of them had a end time. Some places they say, let me bring up calendar here, they say the 11th at midnight, so the midnight between Thursday and Friday, between the 9th and the 10th and the 11th. Here's where we are, Oak Bay. It says it began 3:20 p.m. Of course, that's only an average. Ours was lost at 7 a.m. And today's the 7th, and it says tomorrow night, midnight. Some places like Macadam, are getting lucky. Well, see, they put multiple categories for each village. I don't know why. But one place for Macadam here says later tonight they'll be back online. But yeah, it seems most of them are the 10th or the 11th. So we're actually kind of lucky because we're between the 8th and the 9th. Doesn't appear anyone extends into the 12th. So there's that. It says in the manual here, low battery alarm alerts you if the battery has become discharged to 10.5 to 11.5 volts. Well, what does that mean? Is it going to start beeping when it gets to 11.5, or is it going to start beeping when it gets to 10.5? I don't know. Low battery voltage shutdown shuts the mobile and power inverter down automatically if the battery voltage drops below 10 volts to 11 volts. Well, which is it? You know, there's a significant difference between 10 volts and 11 volts when it comes to a lead-acid battery. 11 volts probably means, yeah, you can probably restart your engine. 10 volts means there's a possibility you can't. So, yeah, it's kind of bad that I guess they've programmed this thing with a range of voltages, but they don't explain in the manual what causes it to shut down at a particular voltage. You know, is it going to shut down at 10 or 11? I don't know. Who knows? Only God knows. Oh, I forgot to mention, this morning when I tried running the freezer with my 300 watt inverter on my jumper pack, I noticed that when I turned the jumper pack on and the freezer tried to start up, and of course it was unsuccessful, the jumper pack did actually shut down for a split second. It would shut down, turn on really fast. So it turns out that the manual of my jumper pack isn't lying. It does in fact have overcurrent shutdown protection. But the problem is, it only shuts down for a fraction of a second before trying again. And as I discovered 8 or 9 years ago, when I had my first one of them, which I blew up when I tried running a 1,000 watt heater on it, that kind of protection is not really good enough. Because it shut down, turn on, but the length of time it was turning on was enough to blow up the inverter. I did find with this thing, when I tried plugging the fridge into it when the freezer was already running, that it behaves the same way. It only shuts down for a split second before trying to turn on again. So it shuts down, turns on, shuts down, turns on. So I gotta be careful because this thing could end up the same way. Actually, this is a MotoMaster Eliminator, which is probably the biggest name in Canada when it comes to inverters, and I think they're rather good quality, but well, they are made in China. I can notice a few China-esque manufacturing techniques. For example, the LED display looks kind of weird in there, looks kind of crooked. But it's very possible, I would not be surprised if it turns out that the MotoMaster Eliminator stuff is manufactured by Xantrex, the same company that made my jumper pack. And I would almost bet that this was made by Xantrex, since it behaves the same way as my jumper pack when it comes to overcurrent protection. Although, with that being said, my grandfather used to have a MotoMaster Eliminator 600 watt power box, a jumper pack with a 600 watt inverter, and that had real overcurrent protection. If you try to run something that it couldn't handle, it shut down permanently until you turn the power off and turn it back on. So that's kind of weird. I don't know why this doesn't have something like that. I'd prefer it more, but no matter. I'll just be careful with it. Check this out. More Chinese stuff. USB output 5 volts, 2.1 amps. That's really good out of a single USB port. But look at this. It's very obvious that at first this manual said something different than 2.1 amps. You can see there's a square box around it indicating that someone took, I don't know, whiteout tape or something, I don't know. But they covered up whatever it originally said and put the 2.1 amps, and you can tell because it's set slightly lower than the rest of the text. Very sneaky, but it couldn't get past me. Choosing an appropriate location. Oh my god, I almost wish I never cracked open this manual. I have held MotoMaster Eliminator stuff in high regard, but this manual isn't helping me maintain that.